We have a great session for us today. I'd like to first introduce, first let's say, wasn't last night pretty wonderful with all the March for Babies kickoff and all the speakers and everything in this morning? As you've seen during your time here, March for Babies, and you're really in the driver's seat of March for Babies. March for Babies raises over $100 million for the March of Dimes. It's about half of our entire budget, and so it's critical that March for Babies be a success. So thank you for everything you've already done and everything you're about to do. So we appreciate everything that you're doing. I know the journey and hard work and great satisfaction you're about to embark on will ensure a great success and a wonderful 2014 March for Baby season. One of the things that you'll see as we go through this a little bit is we're kind of we're always refining the way we work with March for Babies. So we always try to improve the way we do it, ensure that we're maximizing our income. And so one of the things that we are really working on going forward is trying to empower our volunteers, and going from 2012 to 2013 to 2014, we're really trying to empower our volunteers to have the most successful events possible. And you'll hear a little bit about that from our presenters. But one of the things that I think it will be helpful is always you're going to be asked to be led through some exercises. And one of the things to think about at this time as well is, what is the goal for your walk site overall? Hopefully your staff partner has shared with you what the goal is for the income for your walk site, and you've probably been talked to about a specific commitment going forward. But also consider what the overall goal is for the walk site, and really keep that in mind. Now, fortunately, we have two great presenters for us this morning. We have Karen DeMartini, who is the state director for the California chapter since 2011, January 2011. She is responsible for $14 million in revenue and has been with March of Dimes for 13 years. She started as the executive director in the Bay Area division and has served as the California State Director of Civil Services. Karen lives in San Francisco with her husband and young family. And then her volunteer partner is Dr. John Welty. He's retired as the president of California State University Fresno, or Fresno State. He was there since July of 1991. He is also the professor of the Kremen School of Education and Human Development. Dr. Welty served on the CSU's major strategic planning efforts. He participated in the creation of the voluntary system of accountability, which has adopted over 200 colleges and universities. He has served on several advisory groups for the U.S. Department of Education and Agriculture. He's past chair of the Renaissance Group in the National Organization of more than 30 universities dedicated to improve teacher education programs. So you have a wonderful group of presenters here this morning. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Welty.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Good morning. It's good to be here. So I have to let you know that Dr. Welty and I did this presentation last year, and I felt like I needed to bring a bodyguard because the participants rushed him at the end of the presentation and during the small group presentations to learn a little bit more about all of the wonderful things he accomplished for us. So our goals today are straightforward and practical, and what you're going to see is a case study of Dr. Welty's year as our March for Babies chair and how he grew our event tremendously. We're going to start by talking about our external campaign, which is really what you all are being asked to do in terms of bringing on help and bringing on more business executives to help bring in new teams, new sponsors, and new friends to the March of Dimes. And then what we'll do is we will look at the internal campaign and the campaign that you are going to be executing within your own company. So one of the nice things about this room is the top media market walk chairs were invited. So these are all of our large markets, or you are representing a portion of our large markets. So what's nice is when you're talking during our table discussions, you're going to be talking with people who will be in a similar situation to you. Okay, so what we wanted to do is to list the 5 greatest priorities for you as our walk chairs. Because I'm sure some of you are thinking, okay, I've signed up for this gig, what does this really mean? And where the heck do I start? So these are the things that we think are the most important. Okay, and we're going to go through each of these in more detail throughout this presentation, but just for an overview right now, what we recommend and list here at the top here is that you want to start now. And I know some of you have already started, which is fantastic. If you haven't started, don't worry, don't panic, it's okay. We can do this. You're going to want to recruit community leaders, and this is this executive leadership team that I was referring to a couple of minutes ago. Another thing that you'll want to do is secure new revenue, of course, through this team of new executives or maybe returning executives that you're going to bring into the fold for the campaign. You're going to activate your own company, and hopefully we'll see your companies in the biggest presence at our walks. And then, of course, as leaders, you're going to provide leadership and support to both external and internal efforts. All right, so let's hear a little bit from Dr. Welty.
Well, first let me say congratulations or condolences, however you wish, depending upon how you were recruited or selected for your leadership opportunity. I know that in my case it took a few phone calls from the head of Children's Hospital, who was the person that recruited me in Fresno to take the task on, and unfortunately I wanted to get something from him, so we kind of worked it out as time went on. But the service chair, I was asked to actually to set a goal or to bring in $40,000 in new revenue, and as we started, decided that Fresno State would come in as a $12,000 sponsor as part of that $40,000, and then also asked to put together a revenue committee, or what we call a revenue committee. I actually call it a steering committee of 10 to 12 other folks from the community that would agree to step up and bring in some new dollars as part of that overall goal. As often happens in these efforts, about a month after I was recruited and agreed to go after $40,000, Lynn Hogue-Caden, who was our exec in our area, came to me and said there's 2 division sponsors going to back off for next year because at that particular time some of our healthcare community had some fiscal issues they were dealing with. So we changed the goal to $60,000 to get started. And as I'll mention in a few minutes, when you set that goal, really important, I think, to begin to think about how you're going to get there, how much you're going to deal with your particular company or organization, how much you think you can get the company or organization to raise, and then who are those other people that you're going to engage in order to put together the revenue or the steering committee. So let's turn, and I think at your places you've got a little white sheet, a little worksheet that we're going to use today. And just to kind of get us started, really the first part is thinking about what your commitment is as a chair, and if that hasn't been discussed with you, you might want to think about it today. If it has been discussed with you, then we'd ask that you jot that down on this planning sheet that you've got in front of you, and it's going to vary. I suspect in this room, since you're all large markets, you all must be in the $100,000 to $200,000 to $300,000 range. Oh, just checking. So, now I've got people not even looking at me, others that are looking away. But at any rate, I assume you've had that discussion, and if you would just jot down what you remember, the commitment that you've made when you were recruited, and then really ask if you haven't discussed that goal with your team at this point, you might want to just think about what is going to be your sponsorship commitment, what will be the commitment that your organization will make, and then that really leads you to how much more you need to raise in terms of the revenue or steering committee that you're going to put together. And that, let me just stop there and give you a few minutes to jot those down, and that'll be our starting point, and then we'll come back and get started on the real stuff in terms of how we're going to get there. Okay, has everybody got a number? All right, let me do a quick check. How many of you are going to raise $30,000 in new revenue? See hand? How many 40,000? 50? 60? Anybody over 60? What number?
125,000.
Great, okay.
What's the question? What was the total?
Total new revenue.
New revenue was
100, okay.
70.
70, okay, great. So we got a range of 30 to 125. Anybody over 125? Okay, great. All right, so you've got that new revenue goal set, and really the question then is, how do you get there? And I think one of the most important things that you can do is really spend some time planning, working with your exec, kind of strategizing how you will get there. Obviously, you've got your own organization, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But if you think about beginning to recruit your steering committee or revenue committee, it's important, I think, to identify key people. And as you think about that, obviously, if you're in business, you probably got business colleagues. As I look at a community, and from my standpoint, I look for some new businesses that we're looking to kind of move upward in terms of their visibility in the community. That's one kind of category to think about. Another kind of category is to look for new leadership that's in the community, folks that you've run into that you really think are placed in an organization so they can have influence in the organization. And in my case, I went after all the school districts and the county government, city government, because those were folks that I worked with, and they had not really been involved in the March of Dimes. And part of the key is recruiting people that are placed in an organization that can influence the organization, get things done, and also that have a large number of employees, because that's the quickest way, frankly, to get to that goal if you can get a few of those folks. So we'll come to that in a minute, to spend some time just thinking about who are those folks. And then, of course, you got the other categories of people that have called you to ask you to do something for them. You call them back and tell them, hey, it's time to step up. So that really becomes, I think, probably the most important thing you can do is recruit that steering committee or that revenue group, because if you get the right people, it'll go really very, very smoothly. And I know, laid out a plan. We did the recruitment, as I recall, in the fall of the year, and we had a plan. We're going to do monthly meetings, but I was fortunate. I got a group that was good enough that we really didn't have to meet monthly. With the help of our exec, we were able to move really about every other month, and everybody stayed on target and disciplined in terms of what they were doing. And then the other thing that is important is the minute you recruit that group, begin looking for your successor. Because if you don't find a successor, they're going to try to stick you with it for a second year. So that's an important motivation. So as you can begin, as you're working with that steering committee, you can begin to see people that really are involved, and the most ideal person, frankly, is somebody that's had experience with premature birth and knows what the March of Dimes can do, because they have immediate passion. You don't have to really get them engaged. Are well placed in an organization and are able to reach out to a significant group of people. Those folks are the ones that you can really, and they're often the most busy, but that's, as you all know, that's really who are the most effective people. Okay, back to you.
Okay, so let's talk about our March for Babies activation timeline. And as we discussed, earlier, some of you may have already started, and the fact that you're here is a huge win for you. And I'm assuming that you're already working with your local staff on your timeline and how you're going to make this happen. But if you haven't, that's okay. What we're going to do is approach this session as if you're starting now. Okay? And as Dr. Welty said, one of the first things you should do is think about your successor. Now, my notes say that we encourage you to do that, but you've heard the official word. If you don't, you're going to get stuck with it. So just know it was said here. But it is a really important thing, and our goal, just so you know, for successors is that we want them at the event the year before. Okay, so you all are 2014 chairs. If you could think about recruiting our 2015 chair, your 2015 chair, before your walk next spring, then they can see the event. It'll help them get a flavor for it. It'll help them understand. So we really ask that this is one of the first things you do. Okay, it's really important that you set your meetings with staff. And what I always like to do is in the first meeting, just look at the year and just put those dates on the calendar. Now, we know you're all busy people. That's why we asked you to do this. So we understand that some of those dates might need to move, and that's okay. But we really recommend that you schedule those, because those are the meetings where you're going to look at who are the prospects for your executive leadership team. Who are the revenue prospects that you're asking for new teams or sponsorship? Where do you need help? Where are we struggling? Where can we help connect you with someone else like Dr. Welty who might have some good ideas that would be helpful in your market? And then given where you are, we would hope that you could have your first executive leadership team meeting in November or December, and that will really kick off this recruitment effort that your committee's going to do. Now, my friend Sandra in the back here, I know she's going to want us to move those timelines up as well, which is another reason why we really are begging for your help in getting those 2015 chairs secured a little earlier. Okay, so with that, why don't we look at your timeline, Dr. Welty? Why don't you walk us through how you did it?
Well, I essentially was recruited in February, and then we did a little bit of planning in the spring, but it was in September where we really went out and actually set the goal of completing the revenue leaders or the steering committee recruitment by early September, so that we were ready to go. As I think you know, it's hard in summer, but I started in August, and I think by mid-September we had 15 revenue leaders, all of whom had agreed to go after $5,000 to $8,000 in new revenue. Now, I did purposely recruit more than the goal, because you will find that you're going to have some individuals may not hit it, but if everybody hits it, that's great. You really look good because you go way over goal. So I would not, if your goal is 60,000, don't lock in just on 60. Go after a larger amount, because that gives you then the opportunity to really be successful, or if things don't go quite the way you think they will for somebody, you've got a little bit of flex. We started then in October with, as I said, we had scheduled monthly meetings. That's the schedule we put together. As it turned out, we didn't have to use all of those monthly meetings. But likewise, the exec then, Lynn Hugg, started going one-on-one with our steering committee leaders, getting them essentially prepped, getting their sponsorship worked out, and then beginning to work with them on what they were going to do with their respective organizations. And then as we essentially took the fall to get that work done, get training set for the organizations, as we turned to January then, we pretty much had all of the planning done, so that we had, as I recall, one January meeting, and we were shooting for an early April was the walk. That's all we had to have, because the group that I had fortunately really worked together, did an excellent job, and they were ready to go in January. So the earlier you can get that training done, the better off it is, because they'll get the work going within the organization and get more teams. And we'll talk about that internal organization in just a few minutes.
We have a great opportunity here. I heard about a great event that happened earlier, just a few weeks ago, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. and wanted to bring that leader up, someone who's in your shoes right now. But we have Steve Love, who's the chairman of the Dallas-Fort Worth Walk, and the chairman and CEO of the Dallas-Fort Worth Hospital Council. He's just had his revenue leader meeting, and wanted to share a few of his learnings with you, kind of in his learning lab.
Thank you very much. I'll set the stage a little bit for you. First and foremost, we have great support, obviously, from the local March of Dimes folks in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, no question about it. But with that said, you can be a little innovative. It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. So we set our revenue committee not at 12. We've got 50 people on our, we call it the chairman's committee. And the way we did the structure, and I'll give you a little backdrop. Dallas-Fort Worth is 7 million people when you include Arlington and all of North Texas. We grow at the rate every 5 years the size of the city of Atlanta. So put that in perspective. That's what we're dealing with. So as a result, we thought we needed more, and I certainly needed all the help I could get. So being involved in hospitals, I immediately felt very comfortable calling 2 folks from hospitals, and they're here today, I'm delighted to say. Pam Storinoff, raise your hand, Pam. Pam is the Chief Operating Officer for the Methodist Healthcare System in Dallas, and she agreed to co-chair Dallas. And then Joseph DeLeon, and Joseph, raise your hand. Joseph's with the Texas Health Resource System over in Fort Worth. He's a hospital CEO, and he agreed to co-chair Fort Worth. So I tweaked it a little bit where we're covering the whole community, but you have to live that or know it. There's a little difference between Dallas and Fort Worth. And they let you know that. So it's best that we coordinate it this way. But we did sit down and look at community leaders. We looked at people not just within healthcare. We looked at people within some of the areas that we knew would support us. And so we got 50 people to come at the end of August, and we had a breakfast, and we went through our goals and objectives. And I'll share it quickly with you. Last year, I think Julie told me that the overall goal for the Dallas-Fort Worth area was $3.1 million. We've upped it to $3.7 million this year. So we've got net new revenue that we're going after of $600,000. The other thing we did when we had the 50 people at the first meeting, we challenged each of them to go find someone in another company or another organization to have them join us on the committee. So if we get up to 75 or 80 people, we're going to be pleased. Now the structure is such, Monday morning, Pam is having a meeting at Methodist, inviting the people on the co-chairs committee and people that are in the revenue committee to her meeting. Joseph is also having a meeting Monday morning over in Fort Worth. I'm going to try to go to Pam's one time and go to Joseph's the other. But we're really getting a community commitment. We're really laying the plans out. And let me tell you why you need to do that. Many companies aren't necessarily on the same budget cycle as a fiscal year, being the calendar year. And it's easy to say, well, if I'd have known you were going to ask me, I could have put it in the budget, but it's not in the budget, so I can't give to March of Dimes. You need to be doing some of those asks in August, September, and October when they're preparing those budgets so you can get a placeholder in their budget. But we felt like we had a great, successful kickoff. We've got great co-chairs. The local March of Dimes office is really helping us. We've got some lofty goals and objectives. But it's really important. Texas, unfortunately, has a preterm birth rate of about 12 to 13%. And we really need to focus in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Joseph is an active community leader. He's president and chairman of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And as you saw today, as you look at diversity, African Americans, Hispanics, we have got to all work collaboratively together as we deal with this. Pam, equally, Methodist has done great work in NICU and some of the things. And I will say one thing on behalf of hospitals, since that's my day job. You know, you heard a lot today in the scientists about how much it costs when you go to a NICU unit. And hospitals are committed to do something about this and keep kids out of NICU. That expense is all revenue. So we're walking the walk, because if we can keep them out of the unit, it's right for the infant, it's right for the family, and it's right for all of us, even though we take tremendous revenue reductions as a result. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Steve. That's a terrific story. Now I'd like to bring up Dr. Jennifer House, President of the March of Dimes, to say a few words to you as our leaders in revenue for March for Babies.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be with you, and I've already had a very important learning, and that is that Dallas and Fort Worth are not the same. So I feel very well educated already, and I was just mentioning to Steve that I'm very much looking forward to traveling to Texas and partaking in that very special March for Babies rally, gathering point, business session, whatever it is you like to call it. I really look forward to being part of that. Steve mentioned the business community are profoundly involved stakeholders in the mission of the organization because of the excess costs that go to the bottom line of the benefits and health budgets in companies. And you heard a little bit earlier that premature birth, every premature birth costs about 12 times as much in terms of a hospital and follow-up costs, and those get translated right into the benefit calculations and the premium calculations for companies. So there's been some extraordinary work done by Paula Ransom and Sandra and our team to really try to bring forward making the case, the business case around the importance of the mission, the cost of business of premature birth. So I'm really happy to see that mission connection. The March for Babies Chair program is really the key strategy for success for our March for Babies event. And since you're business people, I just remind you that if you were faced with a revenue generation opportunity that represented half of your revenue for the year in an event that took place basically in a week period of time, a 48-hour period of time, I know that you'd be paying very special attention to that revenue generating activity. It's a very compressed source of revenue for us. And March for Babies, we do believe can be unlocked and can grow substantially, but really the CHAIRS program we think is the critical necessary ingredient for success. And I love hearing the way that you've laid out how you're planning to carry forward your leadership responsibilities, and just would invite all of us to think about how those lessons for success can be applied and adapted and adopted in your respective communities. So I know this will be a great learning session for you. I can already feel tangibly the success that we're about to unlock in this event for 2014, and I thank you so very much for your volunteer commitment to the organization and what I know is going to be a truly successful 2014. So thank you very much. Have a great workshop.
Last night you saw the video of one of my volunteers, Randy Pond, who's the EVP of Cisco in Silicon Valley, and he won the Elaine White Law Services Award. And when we approached him, you may recall in his video, he said he had 2 moms that worked for him that came and talked about their stories. And he looked into the cost to his business and realized they had already had 2 babies born that they spent more than $1 million each on. Since we've met him, they've had a 3rd. And so he said, I'm getting involved because this is affecting my business, and I have got to be part of the solution. So let's look at the cost that was done through a study that Ed Hanway mentioned this morning called the Truven, or was done by the Truven Health Analytics Company. And we're looking at the excess costs, excess healthcare costs for premature babies that are paid by commercially insured businesses. So here's what we found. Employers are paying 12 times as much for healthcare costs for preterm babies and low birth weight babies, compared to babies born without complications, 12 times. Each baby that is born preterm or low birth weight adds $50,000 in expenses to your bottom line. 1 in 9 babies born in your businesses are born preterm. Okay, that's our national statistic, so it's happening in your companies. That one preterm baby is costing more than all other 8 babies combined. Staggering. Okay, so let's look at what drives these excess costs. So what you'll see here is for an uncomplicated birth, a baby that's born on time, healthy, no serious consequences. They spend about 2.2 days in the hospital. They have, on average, 13.8 outpatient visits. And they tend to get about 3.2 prescriptions filled. Okay, what about a newborn who is preterm or low birth weight? 14.8 days in the hospital, 19.7 outpatient visits, 4.8 prescriptions filled. So with the inpatient days, that's a 7-to-1 cost differential. With the outpatient visits, it's a 1.4 to 1 ratio, and with prescriptions, it's a 1.5 to 1 ratio. So what our data is showing is that among the insured population, 10.8% of babies are preterm. Staggering. So all told, including maternal and newborn costs, and this is just the newborn costs, we're estimating that prematurity is costing U.S. business $12 billion annually. Okay, so my question to you is, how much are you paying? Okay, have you looked at that? And can you use this information as you're going out, as Steve mentioned, recruiting your executive leadership teams and having people really look at their costs? And maybe they'll find, or maybe you'll find that you'll have that next Randy Pond who says, I'm going to get involved because this is affecting my business. You know, or the next Steve Webb who says, this is impacting my business. Just one last note on this slide. This represents just the first year of life for the newborn. And a lot of these babies go on to have long-term health care costs and consequences, which, you know, clearly are driving more costs for your businesses. So we wanted to give you some messages that you could use as you're out there in the communities talking about your chairmanship. Okay, so clearly we've demonstrated prematurity has a material impact on your bottom line. Employers are paying 12 times as much for our preterm babies and low birth weight babies compared to those babies born without complications. Each of those babies costs $50,000 more than a baby born without complications. And again, 1 in 9 babies is born preterm. That one baby's costing you more than the other 8 combined. Okay, do you find these helpful? Yeah? Is there anything else we can do to help you message this or deliver those kind of key points as you're talking to people? Yes, Barbara.
I would just point out that this is an average, but you mentioned $3 million babies in Cisco. So.
Yeah. I actually just did a meeting with a large retailer in San Francisco, and I met with the EVP of HR. So she was really well aware of what was going on, and she told me they had a $3 million baby, which is the most I've ever heard in 13 years. So these are averages, and those companies that are impacted by that $1 million baby, it's a big, big deal. Okay, so please, let's be a little more interactive. I know you don't want to hear just from me all day. So if there's anything that we present, you know, let us know if there's something we can do to be more helpful. Okay, so let's go back to Dr. Welty.
Time for you to go back to work a little bit and pull those sheets out again. We'd like for you to take a few minutes to talk with each other about your committee. Now, some of you may have already, as Steve pointed out, got that work done, but and you're not going to get it all done today, but just take a few minutes to start thinking about who would make up the revenue or the steering committee or whatever you're going to call it. Categories, friends, business partners, vendors, Chamber of Commerce people or other organizations, people from your place of worship, alumni, customers, any of those folks. Take out your iPhone or BlackBerry and start going down, but start building the list, and we'll give you about 5 or 6 minutes to get started on that list.
Hey, y'all have the best list developed? You ready to go? This is good. They're working hard. Okay, so we're going to get started again. I think you all did some really good work. See, I've been hanging out with my Texas friends. Now I find myself from California saying y'all. It happens at every national meeting. Texas is working very hard back there. Okay, so we're going to move on. It looks like you all are having some great conversation. I'm sorry to cut it short, but this is why we ask you to schedule those meetings with your staff so you can continue this great dialogue. Okay, so it sounds like you are all ready to rock and roll with your executive leadership teams. So let's turn to the internal campaign. And what we've done is we've laid out a map for you for what are the 5 really important strategies for you to take on. Some similar themes that you'll find. So if you haven't started, we suggest that you start now on your internal campaign. We want you to think about, if you haven't done this already, who are you going to recruit as your executive champion? We're going to talk on the next slide a little bit about what the profile of that person would look like. You want to recruit an internal steering committee, spread the love, get some help, get some support to make this easier on everyone. As the leader, of course, you want to be visible and offering your support to your team, to your leaders, to your walkers. And then we really encourage you to think about what are the ways you're going to recognize and reward both your leaders working on this campaign as well as the individuals who are contributing, doing things like walkers or helping track matching gifts or some of those smaller tasks that we have. Okay. We see that there are 3 really important steps to take. And so that first one I mentioned is identifying who are you going to identify as your internal executive champion. And we recommend that this is a direct report of yours, okay? Because for this person to be successful and for you to be successful, this person needs to have broad influence. And they really need to be able to have reach into all parts of your organization, okay? Some of our companies try to look at this as an opportunity, as a leadership challenge. Maybe you have a rising star that's, one of your direct reports, and they would love to kind of shine in the spotlight and take this on. So it's just a different way to think about things. Once your executive champion is identified, they are going to be responsible for recruiting your team captains. And again, remember, we want those team captains and your executive champion to have a broad reach into your organization. So thinking about your org structure and how can they have impact and entree into each of the departments, divisions, and business units. We recommend that for each 50 employees you have, you think about having 1 team captain. Okay, so it's just breaking it down into manageable parts and trying to give you those tools of what do you need to be successful. I think this is a really strong metric. And then the key is training these people. So you've recruited team captains. What do we need them to do? How do they work to be successful? And what are their key jobs? Okay, and the most important thing that your team captains can do is recruit walkers who are raising money. Okay, I think it's a good idea, as this says, for each team captain to have goals. So how many walkers do you want them to recruit? How many dollars do you want them to raise? And again, just break it down into manageable parts for each level of your organization. The most important thing for focus in terms of fundraising is walkers, okay? I always talk with our chairs about if you want to do some kind of awareness builder or what we tend to call a wraparound event that's a fundraiser, do 1. Don't do any more than 1, because it will take the focus away from the most important thing, which is recruiting walkers who are raising money. So you really want to think about how to be strategic about that, because your folks will be wonderfully energetic. So you want to have some strategies to say, thank you, I appreciate that, we're going to focus on this instead. The other thing I'd really encourage you to do is understand what is the walker average in your market. So our national average is about $200, a little over $200. In California, it's a little higher. Okay, so in San Francisco and LA, we work with our walk chairs on, okay, let's ask our walkers to raise $300, because that's our average in these markets. So it's just a strategy to think about how do you use the data that's available to you to set the best possible goals and strategies for your campaign. Okay, so let's hear about the Fresno State campaign and how they executed.
So a little bit of background on Fresno State. We're one of the 23 universities in the California State University, 22,000 students, 2,000 employees, about 60 different academic programs, and a university that over the last several years has consciously attempted to connect itself with the community and the region in a variety of different ways. And I won't give you the full speech, but actually I've forgotten it since I retired. But most importantly, one key part of that effort was to engage students in community service and service learning. So that had been something that we've been working on for a number of years, and actually had been pretty successful with students actually give over 1 million hours of service to the community of Fresno every year. So with that background, the recruitment of the executive champion, very, very important, and it's important to do that early. I did it in the fall. Went out and got the dean of our College of Social Sciences, Luz Gonzalez is her name. Luz is one of those people that was relatively new in a dean's position, was showing great potential in terms of leadership, was just getting into fundraising, and we were doing a lot of fundraising within the university, but I really thought she had, go ahead.
Well, I have a question. So last year, I'll be specific, at the University of Colorado in Boulder, we made a kind of I was going to say a lame, but a not so energetic effort at trying to get the business school to step up. And we had some pushback that, legally, we don't have this like one charity, we go at it broadly, etc. How do you overcome that?
Well, we are involved in a whole number of those, but we essentially overcome that this is the year that we're going to focus on the March of Dimes. And we still had other efforts that our universities, fraternities, and sororities were undertaking, and made the point that we don't select any one exclusively, that there are all of these opportunities, but this is the year that I had decided that we were going to make this effort as part of our overall effort to serve the community.
So are we, should we start at the chancellor level?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the place where you start, or you start with somebody that can talk to the chancellor or the president.
Okay.
Because otherwise you'll get those excuses that you just shared.
Yeah.
And often they're excuses. Just as soon not want to engage, but you're better, I think, to get to someone in the leadership part of the organization. Okay, so Dean of the College of Social Science agreed to take on, and I also recruited a steering committee with some conscious people involved. Got the person that was the director of our community service program, the person that had access to essentially all the student organizations. I had a woman from Mass Comm and Journalism who was a social media expert because I thought social media could play a critical role, particularly working with our students. And we also had one other director in our health services who had been a previous March of Dimes staff member that I found out about. And they really were the core team. They came together then and added some people to that core team, but they started working in November, and that is important because they were able to do some things during the year that kind of prepped the organization, because student groups often choose their organizations that they're going to go out and provide service to early in the year, so it's important that there were students that still had some groups they have to serve. We were able at our January assembly to highlight the fact that this was coming, and the steering committee had they had a little internal campaign they put together, had things out on the chairs for all of our faculty and staff in order to get it started. But they went to work, they recruited 43 team captains and 43 teams, and that's a pretty good army for the walk. We're very successful. Of that 43, I would say probably 24, 25 were student teams. The others were staff and employee teams. And another important part about that recruitment was that they were able to get training done effectively in January, February, and in those time periods, so they had time to go out and select students and participants in the drive itself. So that is a very, I think, important. It takes some time, it takes work, but the other key thing about it is the March of Dimes staff did a great job training. Once you recruit those teams, the exec takes over and they do the training, so you don't have to spend lots of time doing that training if you get it done early enough. So, and then we also did a lot of social media and used a lot of the internet so people could sign up and actually make commitments. They've got, the March of Dimes got that system all set up, so it's beautiful to have that kind of infrastructure to work with. So, go ahead.
Did you do anything over and above what the March of Dimes provided from social media standpoint?
We did. We actually, in the social media area, I think, taught the March of Dimes some things, because the person that we had working with it really was kind of on the cutting edge. So she was able to show some ways in which social media could be used, particularly to reach, well, we use it actually with all of our employees.
Could you give us a couple of examples, or do you have a list you can send us?
Yeah, I think we can probably get some information and we can send it to you, but just as a couple of examples, each team, had their own name, and so they formed a social media group, and that group started communicating with each other.
Facebook or?
Yeah, Facebook and Twitter, and you're getting in the area that I don't understand anymore, but they used everything.
It's web pages and text
Yeah,
messages.
right. But they were twittering out. One group would say, today we're going out organizing, getting ready for our walk. Somebody else was doing something different, and that just started forming groups of what they were doing, how they were recruiting. So again, particularly among young people, it can be very, very effective, I think, in using it. So we had, if you look at our, we had not done a March of Dimes campaign previously, so our commitment as a university was zero. We were able to take that and in that 1 year get the $56,600 with those 43 teams. And believe me, it was largely the steering committee and those teams, having enough of those teams, that made all of that possible. The other key that we did was we had a launch luncheon. I think it was in early February, where we brought together all of the steering committee and their key employee groups, and essentially had a luncheon, and it was a fun kind of event. Had part of our marching band there, and it was all upbeat. But we also got each revenue leader in each major area get up and announce what their goal was going to be. And I had been successful in recruiting the school district, which had 6,500 employees and 80-some thousand students, to join the campaign, their first effort. And they got up at the luncheon and announced they were going to beat Fresno State, and that their goal was going to be $40,000. So I, on the spot, jumped our goal to 50. I almost lost the steering committee, but that internal competition really is what made it possible, because there was a lot of, when we got to the walk, and we had over 2,000 walkers, but Fresno Unified, I think, had somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,500, and they almost beat us. But I think, as I remember right, that we came in at 56, and they came in at 54,000 when we got it all done. But that was the secret to get one other entity that really got into this competitive, and and this is where social media came in too. There was a lot of back and forth chatter going on about what one group was doing over the other. But that's a little bit of background on our internal effort, how we put that together, and then brought everybody together to essentially create some enthusiasm and competition among the groups. So, any questions at this point? Yeah.
I was just curious so this was your success in 2012. What happened this past year? Did the teams continue to stay together and work on the campaign this year, even though you weren't the chair?
Some of them did. We had a little bit of blip because we had a challenge with dates, frankly. In April, our spring break fell, and then we have one big campus-wide event that fell on the same day as the walk. And so we went down a little bit, but many of the teams did stay intact and stayed with the program.
Okay, so what did all this result in? So if you remember, Dr. Welty was asked to raise $40,000 in new money. That was his initial goal. He did an amazing job of raising those goals as he went, but this resulted in $185,000 in new revenue in the town of Fresno. Let's have a hand for Dr. Welty. So you remember 56,000 of that was through Fresno State, but the remaining was through new teams, increased teams, and sponsorship, new sponsorship. So it was really, really amazing. Do you have any other comments you'd like to make on the committee or the success? Okay. Okay, then I think we're going back to you. We're going to have Dr. Welty break down a little bit how his revenue leaders did so you can see where the rest of that money came from.
Well, you can, I mentioned this, see the Fresno State 56, Fresno Unified, I guess they only got 52 in the end. So, and then the County of Fresno was another new entity that we got involved. They had a large number of employees, wasn't quite as successful, but they came up with 22 grand, which is for a first effort. And then the rest of these folks, they are individuals from banks, utility company, a couple of private companies. One of the big things in Fresno is that we do not have a large corporate community, so we really had to figure out how to reach out into other parts of the community, public agencies. One big one that I didn't get that we'll go after in the future is the IRS, because we have a big IRS center. They got 7,000 employees. We should be able to figure out something there. So, well, we'll wait a little bit. So, you can see, though, how each revenue, in terms of new dollars, they were responsible for and what they came up with. And again, as I said earlier, getting some of those key people at the outset are really very, very important. The other important thing that I mentioned is beginning to think about the next campaign and recruitment of the next leader. And that we were very fortunate as we went through and as I tried to identify groups. One of the groups that I didn't get involved was the County Office of Education. Larry Powell, who is the superintendent of schools, actually, when I went to him and he said, well, we really can't get ourselves together fast enough, but I really want this because Larry himself had polio as a child and as a scratch golfer today. And so on the golf course one day I said, all right, you're not going to play this year, but I bet if you chaired next year, you could get everybody involved. And he agreed to do it out there on about the 7th or 8th hole. And so Larry did lead the effort, did a great job in 2012, and brought in another part of the community in terms of an entity with a large number of employees that successfully completed the walk. So you might think about, as you think about that internal campaign, and on your worksheets, begin to think about who are the key people in your organization that you can go to. And I think Jörn mentioned really the issue of direct reports. In my view is direct report is very helpful, or someone that can be close enough to you that you can have access working back and forth. But then also looking for, within the organization, people that you think have potential, what I call the rising stars, and give them an opportunity to shine. You'll find that they really like to shine, particularly if they think the president's involved. And the other thing is, if you're not the CEO of your company, I would urge you to figure out a way to get to that person or to get to one of the top people. And if nothing else, ask them to go to an initial meeting as you put together your initial group and have that person say, this is important to our organization, and I've asked so-and-so to be the leader this year. That'll go a long way to providing credibility and getting things started. And then if you've got internal things within your organization that you can develop, and for example, in our case, we came up with this motto that said, healthy babies are good students. And we use that kind of motto throughout. Everything else that tied it to what our mission was is one way in order to, kind of keep that theme going year long. Yes?
What was the quote or the sell to the students themselves?
Well, actually, students were pretty easy. When you talked with them about the March of Dimes mission and a video, some of the videos that are available, it's pretty easy sell because many of them had experiences in their family and they get immediately related, to those experiences. So, and in our case, because community service is an important part of the institution, they were all looking for ways in which they could get involved in this. This provided a great opportunity, a spring Saturday, and they had great fun. I think we showed you a picture, over 2,000 of them. We had them all dressed in red, which is our colors, and it became a great event for them for that morning.
The new money for revenue year slide where you have county Fresno $22,000. How did you activate that money? Was that still through school or how did that money?
Well, I essentially went to the county exec and said, we need to get the county involved because as public and governmental agencies, we need to demonstrate to our community they're supporting us through tax dollars. We've got to demonstrate that we are going to give back, and I need your employees to get involved. And he did then activate people within his organization who went out and essentially formed teams, just like we did it, within the university, formed an internal team, people that agreed to go ahead and recruit some folks from their offices to participate. Did that answer? Okay. Other questions? Any other successes you all have had that you want to share with other folks? I mean, Steve's done a great job in Dallas-Fort Worth. I don't know why they can't hit 1 million. I don't know why they're just going for 600,000. Anybody else have any successes or things you've done differently you haven't heard about that might be beneficial to others here?
I hope she doesn't mind me doing this, but Tracy Van is one of my volunteer partners from California when I was in the California chapter. And we were just reminiscing about 10 years ago. We were in a meeting where her CEO had just committed to being the Northern California March for Babies chair. And she represents Sutter Health out of Sacramento. And that was 10 years ago. And that was... Tracy has championed March of Dimes ever since. And so I don't know if you want to say anything about, leading the charge under the CEO and being the chair and continuing that on after.
Sure, yeah, so I'll just echo what other folks have said about the competition. Part of it, either internal or external. The first year that we did the campaign, we actually got our leadership team in a competition with a leadership team with, at the time, it was Pacific Bell, now AT&T. So the two CEOs had a lot of bantering back and forth, which is a lot of fun, and that helped to raise awareness and helped to raise additional funds. Over the course of the 10 years, we've had to be very creative to keep our employees engaged and involved because it's the same campaign every year, but we've been able to do things like we did a virtual race around the world where for every dollar that an employee raised, it sent the CEO and the CIO on a trip around the world. And so we have things where our CEO got stuck in Paris, and we had to raise a quick, $500 in 2 days to get him off the Eiffel Tower. And we just did some fun things like that, and that helped to keep everybody engaged. I will tell you, one of the challenges that we've had, and I don't know if you folks will have it in the healthcare field, there's the constant struggle between, as a not-for-profit organization, we have a whole philanthropy department that is trying to bring money into the healthcare system, and there's some of those folks that have that feeling, there's that Tracy Van trying to take our money and give it to another organization. So if you have not encountered that or have not thought about that, you need to be really thoughtful in how you approach the campaign and mindful of maybe other internal campaigns that might be happening for your own organization, and try to do it in a way that's not going to take away from what they're trying to do, but just emphasizes the fact that we're a generous organization. We have a generous employee base that will give to multiple different areas. So thanks for the opportunity, Scott.
Thank you.
And just to pick up on that point a little bit, because we had some internal, at the time that I agreed to take this on, we were in the midst of wrapping up a major capital campaign with a $200 million goal. And so I had to spend a little bit of time with our advancement folks dealing with that very issue. But the point I made is that if we're expecting others to support the university, we've got to be citizens of this community and demonstrate that we're helping other parts of the community. And the reality is, on the march, you're reaching different people than, at least at the university level, than we were going after in terms of support for a campaign. I mean, I told those advancement folks they're supposed to be working on $1 million gifts, not $10 and $200 gifts, because we're never going to get there if we don't work for the big ones. But that is a very important issue. So, other questions, comments, successes, any failures? It's okay to fail. There'll be a few along the way. Okay.
For your commitment to the March of Dimes and your leadership. It means the world to us. We couldn't do it without you, literally, and we appreciate everything you're doing. Hopefully the little planette that you did here will help guide you in your success going forward. We did put a little gift on the table for you so you can jot some notes down. Additionally, we have some surveys for you to take to comment on the workshop, and any feedback is greatly appreciated. Please hand them in or leave them on the table before you go. Just fill out those surveys, leave them on the table, and thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.